Hello again. I happened to be walking down Whitehall yesterday, the street in central London which links the Houses of Parliament with Trafalgar Square. As I approached the Horse Guards building, that's the stone archway that connects Whitehall with Horse Guards Parade and beyond that St James's Park, I saw something truly extraordinary. The two mounted horse guards in ceremonial uniform, serving soldiers, were themselves being guarded by two rough-looking characters carrying submachine guns. One was unshaven, the other had a tattoo on his hand. Both wore baseball caps and flak jackets, and from their belts hung semi-automatic pistols, batons, and I don't know what all else. The thumbnail to this video shows a specimen of the breed. These are what the police increasingly look like. Further on I saw another half dozen hanging around Downing Street, and then more as I approached Parliament. These menacing looking types are of course what pass these days in London for police officers. When Britain's first police force was founded in the late 1820s, a key principle was that these men were not soldiers. Using soldiers to keep the peace was seen as being increasingly unacceptable. One thinks of the Peterloo massacre in Manchester, for example. It was felt that rather than using the military, a civilian force would be useful. And the emphasis there was on civilian. These people were members of the public. The police were explicitly intended to be no more than ordinary citizens wearing a distinctive uniform. As Peel put it, the police are the public and the public are the police. This, by the way, is a key element of what is known as policing by consent, which, without being cynical, seems to have vanished without anybody noticing over the last decade or so. This is why, because of Peel's idea about the police being the public and the public being the police, the new officers were to be unarmed and to carry no visible weapons. They weren't meant to be intimidating. They weren't meant to be a military body to frighten the public. They were members of the public. As recently as 30 or 40 years ago, police officers on control were instructed that their truncheons, which were just wooden sticks, the only thing that they carried, were to be kept out of sight, and so were handcuffs. So in other words, they were hidden under the tunic. The idea was that they were to be approachable and harmless in appearance. How very different is the case today, as viewers may well have observed for themselves. So what's with all the guns and flak jackets and generally military appearance which we see today? Is it a response to terrorism? That is hardly likely. Back in 1974, Britain was practically in a state of siege as regards terrorism. Bombs were going off every 5 minutes, to say nothing of drive-by shootings aimed at smart West End restaurants. The worst of these attacks killed 21 people in Birmingham in November 1974. 12 died in another incident when a coachload of soldiers was bombed in the north of England. All this was 10 times worse than any terrorism we've seen in this country in recent years. Despite all this, one never saw a policeman with a gun. Downing Street was open to the public that year still, and there was a single unarmed bobby standing outside the front door of number 10. So what has happened to change all this? It's an interesting point because somewhere down the line the police stopped being our friends. They are no longer citizens in uniform. Citizens in this country cannot swagger around carrying machine guns, nor can they carry canisters of tear gas hanging from their belts or display metal batons. The British police have mutated into a paramilitary force. There was a time when a bobby on the beat would spot children or a mother with a pram waiting to cross the road, and he would hasten to stop the traffic for them. This is not false memory syndrome. I actually saw this happen as a child. Can you seriously imagine one of this new breed bothering to do something as simple and courteous as that? Hand on heart, how many viewers today see the police as no more than citizens in uniform? Precious few, I'll be bound.